first introduce myself and let the panel also introduce themselves. My name is John Kamara. I'm from Africa. So I'm also the chairman of the Africa Blockchain Center in Nairobi. And I'll pass it on to you.
Hello, I hope everyone can hear me all right. My name is Lydia, and I am the Web3 research lead at SolidBlock. And we are on the forefront of tokenization and real estate, where it's like we are bridging the universe and the metaverse. So I'll pass it on to...
Yeah, sorry, it's very loud, yeah. My name is Alex Blagojev. I'm leading the Wakara. Wakara is an NFT blockchain that is running on the substrate, and we're here to discuss the people needs. And Wakara itself is a next evolution of the infrastructure for NFTs. So it's able to run so-called upgradable NFT, and we have a lot of new things that we're planning to invent on the market. So more information you can find on our product site.
Hello. My name is Mamadou Koujim Toure. I'm the lead founder of Ubuntu Tribe, which is a company somehow between the physical world and the virtual world. We democratize access to gold by tokenizing gold and making it available to anyone from their mobile phone for them to be able to create wealth, preserve wealth, and transact.
Thank you, guys. I've been here all morning listening a lot to the Metaverse, different universes, NFTs, arts, really exciting stuff. But I live in Nairobi, in Kenya. But before I dive into what I really want to get into, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions first of all. So when you think about the Metaverse and digital transformation and you think about Africa, I'm starting with you. What do you think when you think about Africa in that context? And how do you see the opportunity from the African perspective?
Well, it's interesting on several levels, because when we say Africa, we're talking about many countries with many people, with diversity that's not seen everywhere else in the world. And Africa as a continent has adapted digital currency, I think, and adopted blockchain faster than I think a lot of the rest of the countries in the world have. So in terms of opportunities, I think it's almost like a leapfrog opportunity for Africa and African companies to get a head start in the metaverse, as well as improving some governance structures as a model for the rest of the world, where the United States could potentially wake up one day and realize that they're behind in all of their governance systems, and Africa actually has the most modern way of recording ownership through NFTs, for example, in terms of title ownership for real estate.
What about you, Alex? What's your thought on this?
Thank you. So I think basically it's the metaverse create a new economy, and that's actually can bring a new impact on the general economy in the region. So the people can become the creators, they can run their own virtual assets, and their self-representation of their digital identity, they can run the new type of services like virtual banking in the metaverse and so on. That also actually can bring the wealth in the region. And I think that's kind of a new, very promising infrastructure and for the people.
Oh, you've been doing a lot of stuff in blockchain. Would you agree that these opportunities exist in Africa?
Let me start by singing you a song, yeah? A song that you probably know and you'll understand why. Do you know Zamina Mina, Waka Waka, Zamina Mina Zangalewa? This is Africa. So the guy who did that song, that was more than 35 years ago. And I was back home in my country in Cameroon, right? But everybody thinks Shakira did the song. Do you see where I'm going? If he had made an NFT of that, it would probably be either super rich or this song wouldn't have been taken by Shakira. So you need to understand, and when it comes to metaverse and NFT, and I take the example of music because I know that space well. My dad is a musician. 99%, actually 98% of the music listened to on the planet has African roots. And do you know how much Africa counts into the global music industry in terms of revenues? Probably 3%. So the metaverse is a game changer, just starting with culture in Africa, right? And it's not just about music. It's about anything you create. Suddenly it provides a level playing field for anyone who has imagination. So that's a major shift. The second element with the metaverse that I see very powerful is not gaming. It's actually education and healthcare, right? Many Africans will never have the opportunity to access Johns Hopkins University or some of the best schools. But with the metaverse, if it's developed properly and if it's made accessible, you won't have to travel that far, you won't have to own that much money, and you'll be able to get the same level of education almost as anyone else and connect with people as smart as you or as interested as you in a project. Think about healthcare, telemedicine. This is also a game changer once you can recreate the right conditions of a hospital with the doctors, etc. Did you know that 60% of diseases or issues that people encounter do not require you to go to the hospital? You can actually handle it, or to the doctor. You can actually handle it remotely. Globally, 60%. Now, if you handle that with telemedicine, you have a huge impact. And that's the power that blockchain brings in, because with blockchain on top of it, right, you can effectively transact from wherever you are. And for me, the metaverse is the next frontier opportunity for the African continent.
Interesting. So imagine at Harvard Metaverse program that it's launched in multiple African countries where kids can actually do that. That'll be a lot of fun, actually. And we can actually get a lot of more younger kids in the continent. But one important thing that I wanted to just to get some context for a lot of people who don't really know what's happening in the continent. So from 2017 to 2019, we saw minimal use cases for cryptocurrencies, and first of all, which was the first wave. But from 2019 onwards to now, about 6 African countries are in the top 20 of usability of various cryptocurrencies. Like literally, the adoption of cryptocurrency in most of these African countries is immense. And the other interesting thing is the use cases are so different from what most of us use it for here. And that's where I'm going to lead my next question around utility, because I heard one of the last panel was a lot about utility and use case. And yes, we know artists, the artistic glorification of NFT. It's great. I got that. But what is the next use case for, especially in emerging markets, where NFTs can actually have a real value? There is one thing to walk around in this great world, but if you're creating this type of infrastructure and you can actually find real use cases for it, this is where I want to go with this conversation. I'm going to start with you, Alex. Where do you see real world use cases? And I call it meta-real. Metaverse meets the real world.
Okay, very good question. Thank you. So, as was mentioned by Mamadou Touré, I agree with everything he stated. And I would add, so this year, I think that invention should be happening on the DAO perspective. So DAO is decentralized autonomous organizations, and NFT itself can bring the new rights for the users. And users can be real people, but not only actually virtual one. And using the DAO as your NFT identity, you can actually execute new type of rights around society, real society. Those type of rights can be different, like it can be basically voting, it can be like managing your own rights about your facility, property, and your own business. And I think basically if we will split and move into the DAO perspective for the Africa, it's going to be the first ever economy which will be driven by the decentralized autonomy on the NFT-based DAO organization. That's what I think can be happening. And this is a very huge impact can be bring to the humanity at all.
Yeah. What is your thought on this?
Well, I have a few thoughts. I have some questions as well, if you don't mind me asking. There's a lot of talk about the commercial value, and I think we're really getting to what goes beyond the commercial value of the metaverse. How is this going to impact society? And my question to both of you is, how do we avoid, in terms of DAOs, repeating the same sort of inequalities that we see in the real world? For example, we heard from Bored Ape Yacht Club earlier. Well, these sorts of NFTs have become another elitist club that sort of exclude people who don't have that much money to access these sorts of NFTs. How do we not repeat those sort of exclusionary practices in a DAO?
It's again a very good question. How to avoid those problems? I think the only question is to run the true fair identity framework that is truly autonomous, and when the people can be equal itself, is not revealing their self-representation. That's what I see can be answer on your question. But those frameworks, for example, they should be somehow based on zero-knowledge proof identity. So my identity I should keep in my wallet, and I should prove my identity to anyone who is like I trust. And that's how I think we can build those connections for realizing DAO in the future. And of course the gas fee, yes, we have to provide the basic infrastructure with the low gas fees.
Kamadu, if you want to tackle that question as well.
Yeah, the question was to you also.
Okay. I think the best way I can answer this question is with an image, right? And I suspect you might not be able to see it, but on this image, I'm sure you guys may be able to how the metaverse starts and how the metaverse ends. So how the metaverse starts, you have this guy with his binoculars, and then how it ends, you have a nail coming out of his small bubbles in the matrix. So what are the risks, right, of going? I love this image. When I saw it, it was so real. You can be very quickly pulled into this dystopian world, right, where this quasi-reality becomes your reality, and you disconnect completely from the real world, right? And we've seen some bad cases on the metaverse, on people having slaves on the metaverse, right? So dystopia is real, and unfortunately or fortunately, you can't really regulate it, right? Because you also need to let human imagination go, but what are the limits, right? So what I think is going to be very important going forward with the questions of identity that you mentioned and so on is really to the question of the digital twin, right? And there are some companies like Threefold who are working on those questions, right? Or the KYC through your wallet, actually identifying who you are so that you can access those NFTs. So down the road, the biggest element will not so much be within the metaverse, but how you get into the metaverse. That's really the point that will be able to actually put some clear measures. But the risk to end up in the matrix is actually something that we're going to have to think of.
Hopefully that we can find some sort of happy medium where the metaverse is actually complementing our actual daily life. And I was talking to someone earlier that we see with social media as it stands an opportunity to collaborate with people maybe we wouldn't have otherwise been able to. And hopefully the metaverse will actually add an extra element of humanity where, we're not just hiding behind a keyboard saying whatever we think. We're actually talking to another avatar that we don't have to see as the other. It can allow people from different cultures to speak directly instead of just listening to the news, which might have some propaganda elements. elements. And one last thing I want to say on this topic that relates more specifically to what I do and Solid Block is, in Africa in particular, opportunities for countries with registration practices that make it hard to identify land ownership could now potentially be tokenized or turned into NFTs, where ownership becomes much more defined and easier to identify. So thank you for helping me answer that question, you both.
Thank you.
Completely agree. Please.
No, I mean, just to circle back for a second, since we're on that topic, the topic is digital transformation as well, okay? So, and we're trying to see a continent where a lot of countries are just going through digital transformation. And, you know, if you take 54 countries, over 60% are just going through digital transformation right now. So when a bunch of countries are going through digital transformation, and you're talking about NFTs, and you're talking about the Metaverse, I'm still trying to understand how that relationship will become justified in those types of economies and where it makes sense. So I'm going to start with you, Amadou.
Yeah, so you're touching a very important point when it comes to Africa and digital transformation. And that's the problem with the Metaverse today, right? So even for the, let's say advanced and developed countries, the reality is that to execute the Metaverse, you're going to need 1,000 times more processing capacity than you have today. One. Second, the level of speed of internet will need to be much better. Now, you can go 5G or look at other alternatives. Third, the computing power of the servers, who today are centralized, will make it difficult. So it's a risk and opportunity for Africa. Let me explain. Today, with Web3, we're entering with the first time opportunity for decentralized internet, where storage, computing, network, and apps are decentralized. So the same way as we skipped fixed line and went straight to mobile phones, the same way as we skipped banking and went straight to mobile banking, we have a very unique opportunity to embrace internet differently. And because it's decentralized and you can localize it, it allows smaller communities to actually have microservers, computing capacity, smaller network that you plug, potentially to the satellite, right? So it's a whole industry for the first time since the creation of internet that does not require multi-billions at centralized level, corporate level to deploy. So if we play that game well, right, it's a very good way. And what we were good at as Africans is when we don't have to deal with the government. That's why mobile phones went super well. You just have to go get a phone, plug and play, right? So decentralized internet could become that thing, and some players are actually working on it. And decentralized computing is actually starting to become a reality. So for us, why we went into digitalizing gold, we're like, we might not have money and our currencies might be worth peanuts, but we have natural resources. And we're going to tokenize them, fractionalize it, democratize so that everybody can get access, get onto the blockchain, and get a digital asset or currency that nobody will ever refuse on the metaverse wherever you go. The same way as those assets, you can use it on DeFi, right? And get the right level of funding, potentially if you collectivize it as a community, to get your own mini internet service provision.
Okay, so before you guys answer, I'm just going to ask you a specific question based on what he said. So you've talked about the fact that we can use this as an opportunity to leapfrog and, create decentralized ecosystems that allow us to, get into this world. So if you're going to, which still requires a lot of work, yeah? Still, it's
no gain.
Right? still requires a lot of work. It still requires a level of money. Okay, it's not free. Does anybody think it's free? No, it's not. So, if you're going to do that, so in your view then, where should you put, and you were going to invest in the metaverse or you're going to invest in NFT projects in Africa, where do you think, what industries and what sectors do you think would actually really benefit from this opportunity on day one, rather than just creating, worlds where people just dance or do fun stuff?
I would create blockchain developers right, left, and center. Do you know a good school I can go to? If I can find some?
So I'm going to start with you. Where do you think, most countries that are advanced enough in the continent should focus their energy on in terms of, creating NFT type solutions or impacting, inventing or entering the metaverse?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and I am biased, so I'll say that in advance. When you were talking, I was actually thinking about, in terms of digital transformation, how individuals, in terms of the value of fiat currency in multiple countries in Africa, individuals will have more opportunities to grow their wealth through purchasing metaverse land. I think maybe real estate in African countries can transform by making itself more liquid, more available to investors, and also allowing African people to grow their own wealth by investing in metaverse land that might allow their currency value to go up faster than it would otherwise. In terms of specific industries like manufacturing, that I'm not so sure of, because I do come from a finance background. So if you guys have a more specific answer for like other industries, I would be happy to hear.
Alex.
Yes. Again, I agree. But I like the word fractionalized. So fractionalized, this is, I think, most probable scenario of the developing of the internet. So fractionalized is the way it's developing in China and other countries. So when you're running the fractionalized or federated internet, and you need to get something in offline areas to be integrated in the metaverse, you have to run low latency, right, for the network. And that means you need to develop the infrastructure. It's data centers. I think there should be some new type of the data infrastructure. We can call this not a hardware, we can call this metaware. Metaware, okay? Metaware. Okay, copyright. But metaware infrastructure, that combines everything. It will include edge computing itself, because for accessing of the metaverse, we need to decrease barrier cost, which is super high at the moment, which is like a virtual reality helmet, PC, a laptop, and so on. So to move to the mobile VR, we need to jump off to computing in the cloud, which will be available with edge computing, and then people can use Oculus Quest, cheap virtual reality headset, to access virtual reality. And also I do believe like edge computing and the data infrastructure can bring very rapid growth for the augmented reality, and this is the new big thing coming in the Africa, and that's also reflects for the advertisement markets, entertainment, education, of course. That's, I think, going to be the new type of this thing, education and entertainment putting together, which will cause edutainment. Because I think itself, we don't need to learn anymore like for 5 years in the university to graduate for digital marketing, for example. We just need to learn like for a couple of months, and this is going to be a new type of expertise you have to obtain very quick. And that, I think, should be going with a game mode. And so my answer is invest in the infrastructure, new type of infrastructure, which we're going to call metaware, and include edge computing, all the stuff. Invest in the mobility of the virtual reality helmets, invest in the edutainment, and that's the key areas for the region.
How about you?
Like I said, you're going to need a large class of educated blockchain developers. You're going to need to even change the education system so that coding is embraced much earlier, so that entrepreneurship is embraced much earlier, so that imagination is valued much earlier, right? But if there was one thing I would do now, I would learn also the story of Bitcoin. As you know, it's very interesting. It started with an ideal, it got caught up with greed, but the ideal stayed with the core, basically. The metaverse today, what is attracting people, unfortunately, is gain, right? So you're probably gonna create business opportunities for Africans on the metaverse first, so that there is a natural attraction to be there, to promote it, to bring people on it. As you now will then need coders, then you'll need all those things that allow your business to thrive on that environment. So that's how I see the construct.
Okay, no. So some stats. We're seeing a number of African artists now who are doing NFT projects that are also raising millions of dollars. A couple just happened a few weeks ago. We even see an African sports star, Eliud Kipchoge, who also did his own NFT and was also extremely successful. But also what you're seeing is from 2017 to 2018, we had about $230 million to $330 million in investment in startups in Africa. Fast forward to 2019, you had 1.9 billion. Fast forward to 2021, we had 4.9 billion. Fast forward to this year, we expect at least $12 billion in investment to African startups. So that already tells you a pattern that once this continent adopts something, we have 67% young people who are under 30 years of 33. Once we adopt something, and that thing, and if you also look at the use of cryptocurrencies, so one of the interesting things that I've been, a lot of governments have also been talking around is around how do you use the metaverse and NFTs to drive value in tourism. There is a huge opportunity for most African countries when it comes to tourism because you have from Okavango, the Masai Mara, all of you sit here, you probably watch it on National Geographic. Imagine a metaverse reality where you could actually go to these places, where you could create the reality itself and you could trade in that reality using those NFTs created by African artists, by African art. And you could also learn about the continent. And that is an interesting use case that says, because off the back of that metaverse, you can actually go into the meta real where somebody can take the value of that NFT and actually buy something from someone at the shop. And you can translate that into a USSD platform. So those are, for me, when I sit here, obviously we do work in blockchain and we're very focused on everything that is real-fi. Our world, our problems are a little bit more different. So this is why I was keep hammering on this question. So that also people who are thinking about the continent and thinking about, okay, how do we take the metaverse to the continent? How do we take NFT? I mean, if you look at the adoption of NFT from January 2021 to January 2022 in Africa has spiked by 1,070%.
Yeah, I would say one thing, right? The metaverse in the case of Africa is the shortest path to reality. I don't have to get a visa that I will never get, one. Second, I don't have to pay for a ticket that is too expensive. Third, I stay in my environment, right? And I can also teach others. All I need is a laptop, internet, and electricity, right? Suddenly, if I can code, I can create a world that the world would never have imagined otherwise. Or from the comfort of my chair, I can access the best assets that the world has to offer. And suddenly you have a level playing field. That's what has been really missing, right? When you think of the brain drain, that's what it was about. And now you can have a reverse brain drain. Why? Because I can go and find the best skills in Africa, pay them for their coding capacity, their intelligence, their imagination. They do and build, contribute to the metaverse from their home, right? So the business process outsourcing that you saw in the past, you can actually recreate it and have a wealth transfer for much more affordable technical capabilities that are co-creating this metaverse that we're all building, right? And that's very powerful, I think. And even the co-working thing, right? So you create a full virtual environment where indeed I got a colleague from Asia, I got a colleague from Africa, I got a colleague from Europe, and we all working on the same project. Funny enough, we're doing it with Ubuntu Tribe, but we're not on the metaverse, right? So waiting for this reality to happen, and where you see others. And that's also very powerful, because now I bring you into my reality versus you having preconceived ideas or prejudice to where I come from. So it's an equivalent it's a potential voice for Africa for the future.
So on that note then, I'm going to go to you, Alex. You now think that, African entrepreneurs or companies that are looking should have to build localized or specific metaverses that are very suited to the African market, that also are able to then convey or solve problems using the metaverse as the infrastructure. What would you say is that?
Well, the digital self-representation sometimes become much more valuable than the place where you are originally born. And when it doesn't matter where you are actually. So I think if you want to stay just online, if you want to develop your product just online in the metaverse, you could be anywhere. I know that there's a lot of the mobility in Africa. A lot of the people have smartphones and people can access internet and so on. But I think the most next thing should be if the entrepreneurs can join this offline and online and create the special areas where you can access using your NFT. Like you said about tickets, and you said about tickets. The question is you buying the tickets. What's happening next after the event is passed? Yeah, your ticket is just putting in the trash. Yeah. Imagine you can not putting it in trash, but it's also about the zero waste. But it's your ticket is in your wallet, become your ID that it actually works and helping you to access the next areas. Or you can maybe elaborate and help the teams to engage and vote for the next content and so on. So I think actually the entrepreneurs itself in Africa can create kind of league for open metaverse initiative and run the new idea of the identity things and for exchanging the products, marketplace, and so on. That's what I think could be bring the real value when the entrepreneurs can join a huge force together to run the open initiative, because the big question is where going to be tomorrow, in Facebook and Meta, or in the Sensorium, for example, or in other platforms. But I think more common truth should be that we should be in an open world, and the entrepreneurs should be following the open frameworks, and because they are creating, they putting their attention, and their attention is the value, not the platforms.
Yeah, I was thinking about one thing that we are highly underestimating, which is actually extremely powerful, is the power of numbers, okay? Today you have 1.3 billion Africans. 60% of those are below 25. By 2035, there'll be 2 billion Africans. And by 2050, 7 out of 10 youth born in the world will be from Africa. So as much as we tokenize gold, we know that the next gold is data. And where you're going to find this data? Mostly on the metaverse. Who is going to supply this data? The active population. Where is the workforce going to come from? Africa. Do you know where to invest? I'm sure now you know. Carry on.
So I guess I'll close out by following up with some of the things you guys just said. And you touched on a point about how people just need some energy, like power source and a laptop. And you also mentioned the idea of tickets and the sustainability aspect. And it's something that's being brought up a lot in terms of blockchain, is how it does connect to sustainability, and the idea that, I want to save that ticket and maybe collect it as an NFT, and I don't have to paste it somewhere. But also it's going to help the world transition to potentially a lot more clean energy sources. I did study climate science at Columbia University, so I do have some particular interest in how the world of sustainability and technology and finance all meet, and that we're seeing an opportunity in Africa for the young talent here to really showcase and lead on multiple fronts here.
So if you then take that to, as we try to wrap up, how do you then think that the infrastructure that's currently existing, so let's forget about all the stuff that we're going to build, all right? Let's just work with what we have. Okay. How do you think the infrastructure that currently exists, or the international market looking at the African market opportunity, should attack the opportunity, and where do you think on day one today the opportunity lies? So assuming there's no other infrastructure being built, where does the opportunity lie as of today?
Making NFTs. Making NFTs is the shortest, quick way to monetize your creativity, your work online, and distribute it, start generating revenue.
I think also is to join as a validators for the network. I mean, if we're saying today, is joining as a validators of the networks, getting your tokens, and you're gonna boost your economy. That's what I think. If you then spend them, build your own motion capture studio, and do your own metaverse. That's what I think gonna be the next thing. Yeah.
Making NFTs.
Yeah, I feel like the answer was already taken. So I'll have to say, in addition to NFTs, will be tokenization and the idea of fractionalized ownership of assets.
I mean, I totally agree with you, because we have African music. If you look at arts and music, for example, has become a culture. So from Whiskey to Burna Boy to Master KG, everybody listens to them around the world. They command huge audiences globally. They also command huge respect. But also you have a lot of African artists who are coming out of the continent who are also beginning to command the same respect. So definitely making NFTs, but, again, back to the question, what then becomes, apart from just making that quick money, what becomes the utility value of that NFT going forward?
Okay, I'll take your point quickly on the artist, right? So, now, today, with an NFT, basically, it's not just the artist that can create money, that can make money, right? So today I can, and I remember that song, Zamina Mina, I sent at the beginning? Okay, that same song, I sell it $1, I code on my smart contract, right? Every time somebody sells it, I keep 70%, and the person who sells gets 30%. Now I can create wealth that is fully redistributed in the community, that serves as a capital base for me to do something else. From the creation of one person, you demultiply the wealth creation opportunity of thousands and hundreds of thousands while you sell to your community, versus nothing against Universal, Sony, and those guys. One dude, right? So I think it starts from this point of, from the bottom up, right? But thinking of models that create shared prosperity, leveraging on the power of the blockchain. Once you do that, then you build, you start small, and like you said on the validators, right? Once you can fractionalize, what has been an issue for most people is access. Right? At the time before Satoshi, Bitcoin was too expensive. Suddenly Satoshi came. Once you create that thing where I can get on the ladder and bring others up the ladder, that's where you start impacting the change. And that's how, think of internet like he was saying at the beginning. From the web page you had with text to Google Maps today, it's still a web page, but it's not, it's right? It's not the same thing. Let's start somewhere.
No, I agree with you.
Thank you. I can go now.
I agree with you, and I think definitely NFTs are, something that I believe the adoption across the continent is becoming fast and huge, but also the creative interest for African artists, or even Africans who are aspiring in different places as well, to start looking at how they create their own NFTs. But then the opportunity also lies in, having specific NFT platforms that also are relatable to some of our own fragmented problems, because, you have your OpenSeas and everybody else, but there's some certain things that they can't not solve within the African ecosystem, which also means that's where the opportunity lies as well for people who are looking to do those things, because you can see how it's happened with a lot of exchanges who've now localized in the African market and how well they've done or how they've returned their proposition. And on a final note, just a quick example before I ask you for one word and leave it to the audience. About a few weeks ago, this is a live example. I met a young girl, and she had bought an NFT of and one of the African artists in her community had done an NFT, and she bought it, and she was able to give it to another person as a value for money in cross-border currency transmission. And the other person collected the NFT and actually used it to buy something in the shop. And they had a poster, I wish I'd taken the picture, say, we collect NFTs of this artist here. That was just phenomenal. I'm sure most of you cannot think, I was stunned when I went into the shop and they had this little QR code and say, we collect NFTs of this 1, 2, 3 artists here.
Yeah.
Wow. That is real fi. Taking it out of this world, yes, we're not really using it to dance and stuff, but taking it back to that woman who's actually selling something on the street, who then actually collects that NFT, and they actually allowed it for her to do it on USSD, which is extremely interesting as well. So, one last word before we take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Starting from you.
I think I've covered it. I said what I had to say.
Well, yeah. So basically, like the NFT's value, it doesn't matter. Like you should like reveal it as a kind of construct that can create the future of the basic rights of the humanity, the basic rights of the humanity of the it can be a constitution. For example, we can take constitution. What is the constitution in the metaverse? Okay, how it's going to be a constitution in the metaverse? Basically, it's going to be something in the NFT, and that's how you're going to design a fractionalized constitution for the metaverse. So I think the more people will be involved from the younger age in designing, because the role of humanity is not to work in the metaverse, basically. Why? Because in the metaverse, there's going to be more AI traffic than human traffic. And actually, we're seeing about equal rights of the humanity, but they're going to be not equal rights between humanity and AI. But this is the next topic. So, because there's going to be a lot of the AI. What is the role of humanity in metaverse? Is actually become the architect for the AI or creating AI. Because AI going to be driving the all data, all the things inside the metaverse, driving all the traffic and recommending, creating the services, generating new type of music and so on. It already exists, by the way. I'm not like dreaming, okay? And humans become the curators. And while you're gonna like learn this from the early ages, that you are the curator of the future itself, that's gonna be the very, very cool story.
And I know we're short on time, and I'll close that out. You reminded me of a story of metaverse opportunity as well, where there's an opportunity for human connection. I had a dream a few nights ago that I was at a party and Elon Musk bought my patent. And I was thinking about that in terms of the metaverse, where you could meet somebody that you would never maybe see in your continent. I live in Africa in the Middle East, so I'm probably not going to see Elon Musk at a party in Israel to sell him a patent. But the metaverse would make that opportunity true. The metaverse could make more dreams come true. People can dream bigger and do things they wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Any 1 or 2 questions from the audience?
I guess, yeah, we can take one question if anyone has any questions. I'm happy to assist here. Anyone? No? Okay.
Sorry. Hi. I just want to ask one a point which you raised. It's edutainment.
Edutainment.
Yes, exactly. So you are blending education with the entertainment, right? And that's the reason you are creating a learning platforms, right?
Oh, we're creating the NFT platform, not learning platform. We're bringing the learning providers on the platform.
And you will be integrating the gamings as well?
Yes.
Okay. So is there any company which is doing this?
So if you take like
Sorry for interruption. Why I'm asking, because I'm working with the Ministry of Education Djibouti. We are working with Ministry of Education Egypt and UAE, right? And we have biggest projects there. So that's the reason I'm asking specifically.
we can discuss it after the. Okay.
Sure, no worries.
Okay, I guess that will be it, and we're gonna have a break now.
Yeah.
Can you please
Awesome.
wrap it up?
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the session. I think you've learned a little bit about the continent and why the value of NFT is extremely important. And yeah, we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.